I was I was elected to 4 terms. So 8 years, and was elected to 2 terms on the West Lafayette City Council. So technically, I've been 14 years have been doing this part-time work.
In the last 3 terms, where you were in the majority.
Last 3 terms, I was in the majority, correct. And I think most of the people down there, I can't remember what the percentage is, but it's a very high percentage of the people in our caucus have never served in the minority. I think that we're down to maybe 15 or 16 of us have been around for more than those 3 terms when we were in the majority, and so that's a different it's a different way of looking at issues and debating issues and discussing issues. I think it's important for people to understand what it's like to be in the minority.
Okay. Now, do you think that we as Hoosiers have been well served with a citizen legislature like this?
I think so, because I think what you want, and I think in the perfect world, and part of the reason why I've chosen to move on, there's a number of reasons, but one of those is I firmly believe people need to go down there, they need to work as hard as they can for a period of time, and that's measurable period of time. Some people, it could be 8 years, some people it could be 14 years, but I think anything longer than that, it's time to recirculate, it's time to bring people in with new ideas, new energy. Not that I didn't have any energy. There's not one person you will meet that knows me that will say that I don't have energy. Sure. So it wasn't a factor of that, but I think a citizen legislature is the way to do it. I think it's individuals that are giving of their time, moving away from their business, whatever it happens to be. You know, Dr. Zent's a great example, or a small business
Sure.
person, or an attorney, or a school teacher, but giving of their time, making an opportunity cost decision at that time to leave their profession and go down there for the good of the state of Indiana. And then we come back every single night for some of us, every weekend for sure, even when we're in session, and get to hear the ramifications of what it is that we did or what it is that we're debating, church, sporting events, whatever it happens, walking down Main Street, whatever it happens to be. So you get the real touch and feel immediate versus if you're in Washington or you're a full-time legislature, you're down in your cubbyhole somewhere and you're not getting that immediate feedback.
Well, now the next thing is you've run for office now for 4 terms.
Yes.
How expensive was it to run for office?
Pretty expensive. I think my first campaign was during 2008, so we had the President Obama was his first cycle through, and it was incredible. I won by 26 votes that election. We had record voter turnout. My district is not a Republican district, but I knew that going into it. I'm a very balanced individual. I think our collective was north of $700,000 is what it cost for both myself and my opponent at that time. So pretty significant for a $22,000 a year job.
So how much money did you end up raising for that?
My share, I can't remember what the exact number was, but it was just say half of 700,000. So
700,000.
So say $350,000 is what each of us had to raise in one way, shape, or form.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty. Lot of money raised during that, and then after that period of time, the amount of dollars that were necessary for my campaigns dropped significantly. One time, didn't even have anyone running against me, which was nice. I think my softball teams that I coached had record years because I could focus totally on softball.
So you were, it was considerably less at that point.
Oh, absolutely,
to run.
Absolutely. And a lot of it just depends on the climate. A lot of times it depends on the issues that were being discussed and those special interest dollars that are flowing in. Sometimes you can control them, sometimes you couldn't. I had a very strict rule that I was doing no negative campaigning, and if anybody did any negative campaigning, whether I approved it or not, if I didn't approve it and it happened, I'm done. I will stop and I will let somebody else get involved. That was important to me. And my first campaign, it had negative against me, and I didn't appreciate that in any way, shape, or form. It's not issue oriented, and so I made it clear even before that first that if there was any negative campaigning, that I would cease my campaign immediately. They didn't believe me, and I said, well, go ahead and you can try it if you want, and then you won't have anybody in the seat running because I would already on the ballot. So that was pretty important to me. I think that's something that's happening in the campaign cycles right now, that I can't even watch the presidential stuff, regardless of what side of the issue. It's just very, very frustrating. Now, some people really thrive on that type of activity and love hearing about it and so on. I'm not one of them. Not one of them at all.
Well, how interesting. But that's 700,000.
How about that?
Where did all that money come from?
All over the place, all kinds. I had quite a few, probably I'd say about 30-40% of that typically is raised individually through your local group. A lot of it then is larger partners, if you want to call it that. That's when you get into the PACs and the special interest groups and so on. So, I mean, it's inexpensive. It's not just a little tiny thing.
I just found that absolutely astonishing, because I've heard from other representatives where they're talking in the $30,000 range for running for office.
Must be nice. Now, I will say that probably depending on where they live, if you're in a small rural area, but I've got Purdue University and Tippecanoe County right here. I'd say after this, for that first cycle, probably 100,000 is probably a better.
Really?
Is probably a better number.
Really, I would not have thought that.
Now, all that information is out there somewhere on the internet, so you could probably find all of it to be exact. I try not to worry. What I've always just tried to do is I always try to raise funds to do what it is I need to do, no more, no less.
Yeah, well, and the reason I asked that that we're asking that question is to get so that my readership can get some kind of indication about how important it is to get involved with the candidates that they're interested in.
It's really important. I'll talk about the dental community, for example. I think it's very important for their voices to be heard, and that is different than just writing a check. Now, the monetary side of things helps because it's human nature. It's our world. It's not just politics. But you want to support a charity, what do? You write a check or you get involved. One or the two things. There's no option of just sitting on the sideline. If you sit on the sideline and don't say anything, then you cannot complain. That was my dad's number one rule for me, and it's why I'm sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in right now, because my dad says if you're going to complain about something, get up and do something about it to change it. Just don't sit back. And if you're going to sit back, then you need to not say a word, and then it's okay. You can think whatever you want to think, but just to sit there and complain, you're not a problem solver.
Maybe that's why I'm sitting in this
Yeah, that's
seat.
right. But it's okay. Here's the part that's so important, though. Being an advocate, though, you're able then to talk about the issue that's important to you, but you're not complaining. There's a big difference in my book from complaining and advocacy. Big difference. So my plea to the dental community on issues that are important to them is that they continue to have a voice. They continue to support the association, who has individuals down there on a regular basis, consistently lobbying for issues that are important to the dental community. But individual dentists write checks. Okay, that's an important part of the process, and be actively involved, whether it's testifying, whether it's being part of committees, whatever it happens to be. I have a saying that I say almost every time I talk: the worst type of bill for me to vote on is one that I've heard from no one on. So when I'm down there,
Sure.
I hate dealing with a bill that I don't know what my constituency, I don't know what people that are important to me feel. So the only way that you can really make a difference is if you're being a strong advocate on issues that are important to you. So that's my golden nugget to the dental community that will either listen or read this interview: is their voice is very important, and you can't have a voice if you're just sitting on the sideline. And there's a difference between advocacy and complaining.
Well, I would like to say that is a very significant part on my own thing, because, for example, the dental community, as you know, because I talked to you at our dental day at the Capitol, but the dental community was able to come in and modify a bill a little bit. And it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't showed up.
And what every and since we're talking the dental community, what everybody should do is they should reach out to their state representative and their state senator immediately. After listening to this interview, they need to make contact if they haven't. start building a relationship, because you could call me at any time, which you've done, on any issue, which you've done, and I'm listening to you. And I'd listen to you even if I've never met you before, because that's the way that I am. But it's sure a lot more enjoyable for us to have a relationship with someone. So you need to reach out, and even if it's just writing a note, an email, or a phone call would be great. Because I also tell people, if you just do a form letter to me, I look at them, but can I tell you, after I've read 15 or 20 of the exact same thing, I just look at it form letter. But if I get a handwritten note or a custom email that, hey, Randy, here's this issue that's coming up. This is an important to the dental community. Can you please help me? Or whatever the request. Those really go a long way, and we do read them individually. Now, I can't speak for every senator or state representative, but me, everything that comes through that's a customized letter, I see all my mail, I see all my emails, I track all of that. My staff helps me track all of that. But it takes effort, It takes effort, and that's what we need people to do.
Well, how much time a week did you spend working at your legislative job? Now, I want to divide that question up into during session and out of session.
Well, I work on a regular day, during the whole entire year, probably somewhere close to 15 hours a day. But that's the way that I am as an individual. I would say about 60% of that time is spent during session on legislative stuff, and probably drops down to 40 when we're not in session. But even with the number of days and hours that I'm working, I'm still able to get a full day in of my real job and my legislative job. But I've got too many responsibilities back here. And then I've got, of course, the family responsibilities too on top.
Oh, no.
Can't forget that.
But speaking of that.
Yes.
Having known your grandfather and your mom forever and ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been exciting. So have another one now going off to college, just going to graduate her. They always say marry her off. I'm going to graduate her on Friday from West Lafayette, and she'll be attending Purdue along with my son, who we've talked about before, that's already over there on the football team.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And then I have a freshman boy.
I don't know how you grew him so big, by the way. But.
Yeah, well, it's been very expensive. He's back this month, and our food bill is like double or quadruple.
But when I want to go back to what you talked about before in terms of contacting the legislators and everything, and frankly, I felt very comfortable talking to you, having known your family over the years in the community, even though I'm not one of your constituents, but that doesn't make any difference.
No, and I think one of the things that the reason why it's so important to build that relationship, of all the reasons that people have called to say how disappointed they were when they heard that I was not running again, the one thing that I heard relatively consistently is approachability. They felt with me, whether they knew me or not, I don't know if it's just the way that I am, that they could come up to me in any venue, any circumstance, and feel that I would listen to them. And so many people, when I said, I'm just looking forward to going to a high school football game and just be able to watch the game, and they're like, well, why didn't you just tell the people to move away so you could watch the game? I said, because that's not my job as a representative of the people, is to be available and to be there and to be responsive. Sure, I'd love to say I'd like to watch my son or daughter play right now, but when they came up, if they're going to take the time to come up to me, and I'm in that public setting, or even if I was in a private setting, I'd still feel obligated to spend time and talk to them.
Well, you go on beyond that, because when I saw you at Dental Day at the Capitol, you had your staff come around and take a picture of us even.
Exactly. I had to prove it, because one of these days you might say, gosh, Randy, you never spent any time with me, and then I could go to the archives and pull out that picture.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Okay. Now, what is the best way, in your opinion, for dentists to meet their legislators?
Well, I think that the great news is in most events that that take place in districts. I think that would be something to go to, whether you have dental day, whether you do things along those lines, that for people that are already in the setting, when they're in their atmosphere, that's part of what it is that we do. When people come in, you have the time, you have the flexibility. I like the in-district meetings. I like the morning coffees. I like to stop by the office at the end of the day. Those are the ones that I like. Those are those kind of informal but yet personal opportunities, and you're able to, not with all the other activity that's going on and legislators looking over their shoulder to see who's coming next and, don't want to miss someone. But you got to be purposeful, and you have to reach out, whether it's at the State House or back in the district. I think any of those avenues would be, I think, worthwhile. And then, of course, you have the phone and the email. They all work.
I was going to say, but yeah, so if I'm a constituent of yours and I've never met you before or anything else about it, what should I do?
I think sending an email, introduction, custom email that says whatever it is that you want to say, and if you want to meet with them, that you put down there, I'd like to have an opportunity to meet with you at any time this summer. Do you have any open houses, town halls that I can go to, third house meetings, which usually happens during legislative session? Or if none of that works, when are you going to be down? Can I meet you on organization day, which is our first day in November that we come down after the election, or come down and see you in session? But I think you just throw out a variety of different options, breakfast, lunch, whatever it happens to be. And most individuals, at least my colleagues, would be more than happy to sit down.
And so there shouldn't be anything frightening or anything about somebody coming to meet their legislature.
No.
Legislature.
And the other thing is that if you can also probably put something in there why you want to meet with them.
Oh, sure.
If you just say, hey, I've never gotten involved in the process. I read and watched a great interview with Dr. Risk and State Representative Randy Truitt, and he implored that all of us go out and reach out. You can even do that little introduction, just from a standpoint of reaching out and trying to build a relationship. I think is the key.
Yeah. Well, and to add on to that, I think, and you've touched upon this earlier in our conversation, when you mentioned that what you hate to vote, what the bills that you don't like to vote is the ones nobody's contacted you with. And what I have suggested is that the legislators like to be, like we did on our insurance, like to be educated on some of these bills so they can make the best decision. Because some of the bills have unforeseen consequences.
Oh, absolutely. And we only know what we know, which is not very much. Okay, because if you think about it, think about all the issues that we can deal with. So I can remember on probably hundreds of instances where I've picked up the phone and called a resident expert on an issue. Hey, what do you think about this? Here's this amendment that's coming down. I got to vote on it in 5 minutes. I just stepped off the floor. Here's this amendment. What do you think? I do that all the time. Well, if you don't reach out and make yourself available, then I'm not going to have that resource to talk to. Now, whether that happens or not to the person that's going to try this, who knows? But it's a whole heck of a lot more comforting, I would think, to be in a profession knowing that you have someone's ear.
Well, I wrote about this in my last column, and when we were down at Dental Day at the Capitol, and we were talking about that, and the insurance issue, Ron Alding went around and found one of the co-authors of the bill and brought him over to me to talk to. And I think that was helpful.
Yep. And that's what it's all about. And the word lobbyist, so many people have negative connotation. They are the most powerful people for us, not because of all the stuff that you watch TV and hear horror stories about. It's because they are the experts of a topic. You're a lobbyist. I'm a lobbyist. We're all lobbyists on things that are important, near and dear to our heart, whether it's our profession or whether it's our family. So those people, you got to be involved. You got to be active, and you got to get your voice heard. It's kind of a common theme, I think, today.
And what you've said already is, what is the best way to communicate with the legislators, which is my next question. And before you answer it, I'm going to steal some of the words out of your mouth, and I'm going to say every way.
Every way. Smoke screen, smoke signals, whatever works. I think you just got to find what works. Some people are very comfortable picking up the phone and calling. Sometimes people are more comfortable with sending an email or even a text, for that matter. I think any possible way, being involved when the elected individuals in the district is important as well. Being there, attending the functions. When we see people there that are taking the time out of their schedule to be a part of something, it means, especially for a citizen legislature.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it, and there's an opportunity cost for people that are serving to be down there, just like there's an opportunity cost for you to take time out of your schedule and go to a forum or a meeting or a lunch or whatever it happens to be. So yeah, I think any way is a good answer there.
What made you decide to run for elective office in the first place?
Sitting at my dad's kitchen counter complaining about something, and we all remember a look that a mom or a dad, for me it was my dad, had, and he gave me that look and I knew exactly what he was talking about. And a couple days after that, I was on the ballot for West Lafayette City Council. And so I think it's wanting to make a difference and be part of the solution, not part of the problem. That's probably the concise way of answering that.
But, well, and I agree with that wholeheartedly. I would like to think, though, that sometimes instead of actually being in office, being around on the periphery some and influencing people is another way of participating in government.
Absolutely, 100%. And it takes those individuals, all a big cycle, right? It's a big circle, and it takes all these people to make it happen. I agree.
Now, do you think your service in the Indiana General Assembly has left the state better off?
Well, luckily I didn't do it for me. So I did it in concert or in connection with a bunch of people. So I think that in my tenure, that Indiana is much better off than when I started. And it wasn't because of me, but it's because of the strategic thinking and planning that went into a number of initiatives that we put into place. You look at our rankings of tax, you look at our rankings of economic development, you look at our rankings of job creation, you look at our rankings of education funding. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Now, we've been blessed with good economic growth and a robust economy, but I think that the policies that we've put into place have led us to be in a better position now than when I started in 2008. So, but it's not me. I mean, last time I checked, it takes 51 of us to vote for something in the House, so it takes a lot of individuals to make it happen. But I think the state's better off now than we were when I started.
Which of your accomplishments in the Indiana General Assembly are you the most proud of?
Well, I would say I could probably list a large number of individuals that were impacted by things that I worked on. I think that I found a little niche in human trafficking for a local Michelle Lehman, who's the wife of Gary Lehman from Fairfield. Had an issue involving human trafficking, had a little deal at her house. I went and listened, got kind of emotionally moved by it, and ended up passing a bill to address the human trafficking and sex trafficking problem that we're having on the I-65 corridor. Now that's morphed into a new facility and new outreach programs and so on. So I've been pretty proud about that. I think my common sense approach on education, funding, and a variety of different reform measures has been something that I've been proud of. I served as chair of the higher ed subcommittee on ways and means. So we did an incredible number of higher education type initiatives that really helped those that are less fortunate and vulnerable in our society be able to go to college and have an opportunity to better their lives. So I've been very proud about that. And then I've done a number of higher education construction related items to save taxpayer dollars on construction of new projects on our higher ed campuses. So there's been quite a few, and then a large number of ones that I won't mention individually, where individuals came even in this office with issues that were of critical nature to them, and I was able to pick up the phone. And that's what I'm going to miss the most, quite frankly. I'm a doer, and I'm a turn the dial type guy, and I'm going to miss probably, because people have asked me that question, what am I going to miss the most? And I'd probably say being able to make an immediate impact on somebody by pointing them in the right direction. Not the answers. I'm not the answer guy, but be able to point them in the right direction to bring kind of closure to an issue, adoption issue. I helped some families with some adoption issues that they were having problems with. I wasn't the doer, I wasn't the enabler. I was able to help point them in the right direction, both here at the state level and also at the federal level, to help them through that. So those are going to be things that I'm going to miss. But I'm replaceable. The next person coming through is going to be able to bring their own flavor and everything, and then I'll be sitting on the outside doing what I've been preaching here, being involved in the process and trying to make a difference and holding up signs. But my signs are going to say, I love you guys from the outside, because I think that that's what people need to realize about our elected officials. Don't have to agree with them every time in any way, shape, or form, but we need to support them regardless of their party because of what they're going through. But you don't have to agree with them. 8 years I've not agreed with a lot of stuff. So
Well, you sound like you're still enthusiastic about your job. So my next question is, why did you decide to retire?
Well, the reason why I'm enthusiastic is because I'm always enthusiastic, and you should know that, Dr. Riss. But I think that because I'm still going till November, so I still have to go to election night, so I have to keep my my stamina. I got to stay fired up during that. I would say probably back to, I was getting a little tired of the shenanigans, I guess would be the unscientific. It's not a very real word, but I think a lot of the activity that was going on down there for somebody that is really paying a high price to be down there in a variety of different ways, both economically from a job standpoint, that opportunity cost, being away from my family. I looked at, so when I started 14 years ago, my youngest was just born. So all 14 years of his life, I've been doing something in public service, which is fine, but it's a lot of ball games I've missed, a lot of nights at home helping with homework, and I was just ready to move. I was just ready to do something different, get my golf game back.
So I think I heard you say I've served my time.
I've served my time. That's right.
Now, why, in your opinion, we've talked about this already, is why is it important for dentists to voice their opinions to elected leaders?
Most individuals, unless they're a Dr. Zent, have no idea the importance of issues to the dental community. We could hear it. I mean, if you're in the chair, you can talk to your dentist, but it's hard to talk when your guy's hands are in our mouth. But I've been impressed at how you can understand what the heck we're saying, or at least you pretend that you know what we're saying.
They ought to have a class.
They should have a class. I thought they did. But I think it's just important for those issues, because part of your job is to educate us on the ramifications. You mentioned unintended consequences. Or intended consequences, right?
Sure.
And you want to know what that is going to be. And a lot of times those issues, 30,000 foot view, we can understand, but deep down how it might impact something else that we're not going to know unless you talk to us. But I think that just the communication relationship is what it goes back to. It's the key.
Yeah. And now the last question, and this is so significant. Why is it important for dentists to vote? Because I'm going to say the dentists are like the regular population. I think I heard this past weekend that 30% of the dentists in the state of Indiana are not even registered to vote. So,
well, I think that number one, it's our duty. Okay, and I get very discouraged when I look at the voter turnout now. It goes back to that complaining again. I mean, if you really don't care and you just go on with your life, then maybe voting's not important to you, but I feel it's our duty. It's our responsibility as Americans in our free country and what we're able to do and what we're able to have. And your voice is the one thing that is protected here. It's what we go to fight for at all levels of government, is for that free speech and for that opportunity to express yourself. If you don't vote, to me, you're just throwing away one of the most important parts of what our democratic society is all about. So it's important to vote in general. Number two, I think it's important for dentists to vote. So there'd be nothing worse, because we do check this. I mean, we check voting records. We check when have you voted, what primary do you vote in, are you Republican?
The legislators.
Oh gosh,
check.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Are you in your district? I mean, there's a lot of things that we do. So, I mean, you don't want to sit there and be talking about an issue and then have it turn out you haven't voted in the last 6 primaries or whatever, or you're not a registered voter or whatever it happens to be. But that could be just anything, not just the dental community. But since we're talking about the dental community, you got to vote. It goes back to that adage of be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
So you might be aware of whether I voted or not, and then if I want to make a contact with you about an issue, that may or may not have some effect on how you're going to view what I'm going to say to you.
Well, I don't know if you'll go that far, but what I will say is that if you go to a point and somebody is not a registered voter, if you just think about the common sense of that, saying, okay, well, you don't even care enough to vote. So for the 30% of people that aren't registered, they need to go out and vote. And my point about going out and doing the research is when we get a constituent email, first thing we do is check and find out what district are they in. Because I'm not going to help, answer all these questions for Sheila's people, right?
Well, no,
But I would.
Yeah.
But it's important because I don't want to be answering for somebody else in somebody else's district. And of course I answer Sheila's people all the time, but
you're not qualified. Your shoes aren't.
I know I scuffed. I mean, they're not high heels enough. No, but I think that it's important to vote. It's important to be registered. It's important to be an active participant in the process. That's probably the most important thing.
Well, now when we turn this off, I have one more question for you.